and Philippine Librarians Association, Incorporated, National Capital Regions Librarians Council, I welcome you to this webinar entitled Faculty and Librarians, Partnerships, New Directions for Teaching and Learning. I am Mr. Marion Jude M. Gorospe, your webinar moderator. Good morning. I would like to inform you that this webinar is being recorded. For our house rules, first, please find a quiet area in your location. Turn off your microphone and camera. Use an appropriate equipment and related tools. The organizers recommend a laptop for the device and Google Chrome for browser. If your broadcast freezes, please click Reconnect or click the refresh icon of your browser. If you have a question, please type Q plus your question in the chat box. To get a certificate of participation, attendees must stay in the webinar for most of the time period and must answer the evaluation form within 7 days starting today. Let us now begin the program with the opening remarks. To be given by someone known to most of us here in the webinar. She is a librarian/archivist by training and practice. She teaches archive subjects, particularly archives conservation, at the School of Library and Information Studies, University of the Philippines, Diliman, and cataloging and indexing subjects at the Virgen Milagrosa University Foundation, or VMUF, in San Carlos City, Pangasinan. She worked for 28 years at the Legislative Archives and Congressional Library Bureau, Legislative Information Resources Management Department of the House of Representatives until her retirement as Executive Director in 2018. She is the current President of the Philippine Librarians Association, Incorporated, or PLAN. Let us warmly welcome Ms. Emma M. Ray.
Magandang araw po sa lahat. Good day, everyone. We just finished holding our PLI Congress 2020, and the Library and Information Services Month ended yesterday. But I believe that we librarians are always revitalized by the series of our November celebrations, and nothing has stopped us or can stop us up to now. Thank you to Wiley for making the Philippine Librarians Association, Incorporated, National Capital Region Librarians Council, along with Network Learning PH Incorporated as your partner in this webinar on Faculty and Librarians Partnerships, New Directions for Teaching and Learning. In February of 1984, that was long time ago, the Society of Professors of Education, or SPE, in the U.S. held their annual meeting in San Antonio, Texas, in conjunction with the American Association of Colleges of Teacher Education, and the conference proceedings were captured in a 1985 monograph where one panel presentation provided a unique glimpse into the history of education librarian-faculty collaboration. Titled Professors of Education and Education Librarians, Prospects for Collaboration, this panel featured 5 sessions facilitated by 3 academic librarians and 2 education professors who shared experiences and ideas regarding librarian education faculty partnerships, both present and future. 31 years later, a review of the prospects for education faculty librarian collaboration identified in the SPE conference proceedings raised an important question. In what ways, if any, have the prospects for collaborations discussed in 1985 been realized in the 30 years since the conference? To answer the question, peer-reviewed articles published between 1985 to 2015, which focused on the SPE conference proceedings theme of education faculty-librarian collaboration were analyzed by researchers Lindy Scripps Hoekstra, a librarian, and Erica Hamilton, a professor of Grand Valley State University in Allendale, Michigan. Aligned with the ideas presented in the SPE panel session, their analysis of the literature focused on three areas: reference, consultation, and instruction. Findings indicate that although there is still more work to be done to further strengthen collaboration between education librarians and education faculty, many education librarians have realized some, if not all, of the prospects identified in 1985. Findings show that when collaborating with education faculty, there are three roles librarians have embodied. 1. Librarians as reference, where librarian-faculty collaboration includes librarians serving as reference for faculty and students outside class meetings. That is, providing assistance to faculty and students on-site at the library or through electronic communication. 2. Librarian as consultant. That is, supporting specific student learning for a course and where librarian-faculty collaboration includes education course syllabi review, content review and discussion, for example, course assignment sequence, etc. Consultation regarding library resources available to support course content. And 3. Librarian as instruction. That is, in-class teaching and presentations where librarian-faculty collaboration includes librarian instructing or co-instructing during scheduled class sessions, whether face-to-face or online. Now, 4 years after this study, with the pandemic in tow, how do we see this partnership? Months ago, in a webinar of Ply Soc Sargent Regional Librarians Council, I mentioned an article published in an SLA Asian Chapter newsletter where Mr. Nabi Hassan wrote, "Every walk of life, profession, etc. is affected by this World Health Organization declared pandemic." He said further, "Most impacted are labor-intensive physical industries, but as the library profession is IT supported, so there is hope." At the 64th IFLA General Conference in 1998 in Amsterdam, a paper entitled Faculty Librarian Collaboration in Building the Curriculum for the Millennium, the U.S. Experience, the author Hannelore B. Rader said that during the last decade, academic librarians have had to rethink how they do their work due to the fact that they had to acquire, process, and balance collections of print and electronic information formats while addressing annual material inflation issues. They had to create efficient and seamless access to electronic information formats. In addition, librarians had to deal with several generations of automated library systems, from the first generation of online catalog systems to the latest client-server, web-based integrated library systems. So, librarians have already made substantial progress in rethinking workflow, handling electronic information, accessing and using electronic information for teaching and learning, even before the pandemic. And thanks to their experience, librarians are emerging within the university as leaders in the electronic information environment where new formats of information and knowledge are beginning to have an impact on learning, teaching, and to some extent, research. Again, even before the pandemic. With remote learning and teaching now, there is pressure not only on librarians, but more so pressure on faculty to increase their productivity and to change instructional strategies. Such demands for the new mode of teaching will be difficult and may take time. It can be accomplished if instructional teams are utilized. Such teams need to include representatives from the faculty, technology, librarians, and pedagogy. Involvement in such teams will provide librarians an opportunity to facilitate the integration of electronic information into the curriculum, offer their expertise in teaching information skills to students, help faculty become knowledgeable about electronic information formats, and provide physical learning facilities to students. This webinar has lined up interesting topics for all of us. Transforming for impact, empowering universities to achieve teaching and learning success through digital solutions. Effectiveness of LMS in online distance learning. Expectations versus reality. Future-ready graduates. Developing 21st century skills through digital learning spaces. Let us all hear from our expert speakers in a little while. Once again, thank you to our partners. Wiley, to Mr. Rajinder Singh and Mr. Carlos Eclevia. Dr. Henry Lynn Magahis of Network Learning PH Incorporated. And let me acknowledge Professor Ana Cheryl Kelsey M. Ramos, Director of UST Educational Technology Center. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today. To our PLY NCRLC family, all officers and members, we pray that all will be safe and that the coming year will be better for all of us. Mabuhay ang PLY NCRLC. Mabuhay ang PLY.
Thank you, Ma'am Emma, for that inspiring introductory speech. I apologize to the participants for the technical difficulty. We shall now proceed with the main agenda for the day, the talks. For our talk number 1, entitled Transforming for Impact, Empowering Universities to Achieve Teaching and Learning Success Through Digital Solutions, our speaker is a highly dynamic and talented manager with 29 years of sales, training, business, and product development experience in publishing, education, and law enforcement sectors. Specializing in education content solutions, meeting customers' requirements to transition to a digital teaching and learning environment, and providing graduates the skill sets required to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution economy. He is currently the Senior Manager of New Business Development, Wiley Southeast Asia. Let us welcome Mr. Rajinder Singh.
Audio Raj, audio. Hello, Raj.
Hello, as we wait for the um, speaker to, for the solution to our technical challenges right now. I just inform everyone that this webinar is being recorded. You may receive a copy of the recording or a link to a URL for downloading the recorded video. All right, so here he is now. Sir Raj, go ahead.
Raj, sorry, Raj, we cannot hear you. You have to refresh your browser.
Alright, so habang naghihintay tayo, shout out muna sa mga participants from the City of Coronadal Library. Very good morning to Erwin Lagustan. Sa mga librarians na kasama natin dito sa webinar, katatapos lang ng ating online congress. Sana I'm sure marami tayong napulot ng mga aral doon. Sa mga fellow teachers ko dyan na nasa webinar ngayon, welcome sa ating lahat. Alam ko tayo ay kasalukuyang sumusuong sa online teaching and learning. Marami siyang challenges. And today's webinar promises to somehow give us or enlighten us about things we can do and for our e-learning work. All right, so here is Mr. Raj Singh.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr.
Hi, good
Raj.
morning. Good morning to everyone, and I hope you can hear me clearly now.
Yes, Raj.
All right.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, and very good morning to everyone in the Philippines, and I hope all of you are staying safe. My name is Raj. I'm the Senior Manager for New Business Development with Wiley. I've been with Wiley for close about 15 years. I've spent about close to 29 years in the areas of e-learning. Prior to Wiley, I was working closely with academic institutions in building online courses. I'll just move to my next slide. A little bit about Wiley. I think majority of you have heard about Wiley. We have been a publisher for close to about 213 years. We focus mainly in the areas of education and research. We have a deep reach into the community. We close to about 46 million over professionals using our platform, be it our corporate platforms or our education platforms. One of our key achievements is that we have close to about 500 over Nobel laureates who have published in Wiley now. And going forward, we are seeing that a lot of them are working together with us now to develop content, tools, and technology-related solutions to help institutions, not only in the COVID pandemic, together also looking at areas where we can bridge the education and workforce gaps. Uh, I want to take a little bit of a stop at this slide, and I think it's a common theme that you will find in any presentation today. The future of work is driving a new definition of academic success. Prior to the COVID pandemic, Philippines was already developing a lot in terms of looking at the IR 4.0 economy, looking at ways to change courses that make it more relevant to the workforce. And I think what the COVID-19 crisis has done is just accelerated how we can educate and prepare students for the future. A lot of things are changing. However, some of the common themes that we are seeing happening right now is people are looking at ways to work with students in a remote learning environment. The conversation and the slides that are presented today here will show a little bit about how Wiley as a company now is changing itself. We are also evolving from a print-based business into a digital business whereby we are helping institutions, helping corporates, trying to address their needs in what we call remote learning environment. A little bit of a statistics, and I think this is nothing very new to anyone in this conversation. However, if you look at this slide, it plays a very, very important brings along a very important thought from corporate leaders who feel that about 45% of them feel that graduates coming out from schools are really not ready for the workforce. On the other flip side of it, you can see that university leaders are also of the viewpoint that with the digital transformation now, not only can we meet the needs of the future workforce more easily, I think the most important point, if you look at it, is the last point in that slide, improving the student's experience. I think this is one unique area that I think we need to really focus on. Prior to even moving into looking at building of courses, even looking at the whole entire teaching and learning journey that a student takes, is how do we improve this experience? Some of the impacts that we're going to be seeing with the digital transformations with the COVID-19 is that we're going to be seeing more changes, fundamental changes in how institutions function. We've been seeing that across the globe, not only in the Philippines, whereby majority of the institutions now are doing remote learning. This will continue when we do not know how long this will continue. And the need for integration of technology into teaching is even more important now for them. We are also looking at, similar to Wiley, and I think this is where we will show you how we are changing to provide different licensing of contents and tools to help the teaching continue to take place in a remote learning environment. How institutions are supporting learning and engagements on their campuses, and how is it changing now? Fundamentally, what we have done in Wiley is that we've gone down to the bare, what we call fundamentals of teaching and learning, which surrounds the instructors' challenges that they face, as well as the pressure that students face as they go into this new, what we call environment. And some of the common challenges that we see with the instructors is that they have very limited time in preparing new materials. Being so digitally connected today, students are able to, what they call interact, engage each other, and cheating on homework has become a norm. I mean, it's easy to do. Retention rates continue to drop, and this has very much to do with that ability to keep the students engaged. And how we're going to do that. From a student perspective, what we have seen is that students are pressed from time to complete and comprehend homework assignments. They have too many assignments. They are just not able, they're just trying to look at it like a task or activity that they need to complete as they move forward. We are also seeing a very interesting trend whereby students now, with access to the web, with tons of information, they try to work backwards on their assignments or problems given to them. So they work backwards from a solution to see how they reach that problem. And because of that, instructors need to spend a lot of time every semester creating new course content to make it more relevant. With the drive towards IR 4.0, there are tremendous changes in every single teaching and learning area right now. Some of the implications of COVID-19 right now, what we've seen is a halt in traditional teaching methods. Online learning should not be a contingency, should forge a pathway beyond the pandemic. And I think this statement here, I think, is the most important in this slide, whereby I think we should not, just because we are moving into a remote learning environment, that doesn't mean that we should start building a short-term kind of solution, whereby we are able to handle remote learning. As soon as the vaccine comes back, we will be coming back to normal. A lot of people believe that that will not be so easy as we think. So instead of looking at it from a perspective of a contingency, it should be something that we can work and build on. And most importantly, I think, is putting the learner back at the center of the education debate. Instead of looking at the most probable type of solution, is this the best? I think it's about starting first and adjusting as we move forward. And I think that is the way we're going to come up with the best models. We can see that some countries have already started to support the short-term measures by supplying digital learning devices, financial supports to students, as well as funds for safety and cleaning equipments. These are things that we see that the COVID-19 pandemic has really kind of accelerated this desire and this move towards the online education delivery. I'm going to spend a little bit of time to explain how Wiley is able to provide you with innovative content solutions to provide students with quality education, as well as not only that, it doesn't look from a student perspective. We also focus very much on the instructor, the ability to make the role of an instructor more comfortable, so that he can focus on the individual learnings of each and every one of his students. Our partnership now, from a traditional print-based company where we were providing textbooks, we have consolidated our entire collection of textbooks, digital textbooks across education, professional learning, as well as research, across 10 subject areas, where we are able to provide institutions now not only content in the education area, but also relevant content in building IR 4.0 relevant courses to ensure that their students come out better graduates. And most importantly, on top and above of that, what we are trying to do is to build a model for long-term partnerships. In other words, we focus very heavily on working with the institution in implementing what they call the solutions within the university itself. And I'll share that a little bit as I move along with the slides. Some examples of what we are doing in the areas of trying to close the skills gap with our solutions. We're looking at courses that enable learners to bridge this gap going into their first job, as well as to get better jobs. We are not only building content, we are partnering with advisory councils around the world to better understand this. We are preparing platforms that are able to be utilized in universities, which are hosted in a cloud-based environment, so helping institutions to plug and play solutions. We are trying to build a best-in-class courseware from our global repository and network of 6,000 authors and experts that we have at the moment. Areas that Wiley is also moving into with its content, the AI and data sciences, domain-specific, the Java tracks, blockchain. IoT, cloud and cybersecurity, and the 21st century skills. I think these are all very, very important areas. Having said that, we also very much realize that institutions are at different levels with their digital delivery right now. We are always very, very concerned with that. And what we do is that we start off first with the transition into the digital environment, helping the institution move and accelerate into a digital environment as we slowly put in as much as we can from the solution as we move forward, so that it gives the institution time to develop as it moves along. So Wiley, from a traditional publisher now, has changed to looking at being a partner, forging partnerships for lifelong learning. If you look at the entire what they call spectrum of a student, what we're looking at is their coursework, academic degrees, making them ready for jobs, continue to providing them skills, providing them certification which they are recognized for and they are able to advance in their professional career. Wiley is looking at in order to help institutions as partners as we move along. So how does Wiley support the daily teaching and learning approaches? We try to create materials that are relevant to course areas, dynamic in nature, to help enhance students' critical thinking and problem-solving skills. We also help them with just what they call ensuring students learn materials instead of sourcing third-party answers. And this has become a very, very dangerous area because we understand that the internet provides a suite of resources when they are trying to learn concepts and all that. But a lot of times we are very worried that this content is not validated. Validated, that means is it true that what they are learning, they are spending time and effort on it. We need to validate that content. And we also tailor this content to make it more effective. We're looking at various different systems and provide different systems to our institutions. We have adaptive learning systems whereby students who are at different levels are able to utilize the system and utilize the systems to improve their understanding of important concepts as they move along. A little bit about how we help instructors. One of the key areas is that are spent by instructors. They need to build a lot of assessments, examination papers. They need to build a lot of content. What we are providing them is access to homework questions which answers aren't available. We have a huge test bank of questions they can utilize. Where we provide them with mechanisms that allow them to look at the performance of students in their homework, easily identify students who are struggling, and how to kind of help them quicker. And these are all built into the systems. And they're able, because of providing them the contents and tools which are required in their daily teaching and learning, instructors now would have more time to spend with students to personalize this learning experience for each and every one of their students. What we are seeing with our current partners is the student retention rates are increasing rapidly. I'm just going to show you a short snippet from a teaching and learning perspective here. We're just going to run a short video for about a few minutes to show you what are the various different tools, resources we provide you in the teaching and learning experience.
The 9th edition of the Marine Thermodynamics course provides real-world applications that emphasize the relevance of thermodynamics principles and some of the most critical problems and issues of today, including topics related to energy and the environment, biomedical bioengineering, and emerging technologies. Here you will see an example of one of the animations within the course, which can be found in the Resources tab in corresponding modules. The course provides a total of 30 animations that demonstrate key processes and reinforce content to help students gain a deeper understanding of course material. Stepped-out tutorial problems break down standard homework problems into logical steps with multiple choice answers. The incorrect answers are based on very specific and common student mistakes to provide reasoning behind why these mistakes are made. These tutorials require each step to be completed before students can begin the next one to help reinforce correct problem solving. Another way students visually learn processes is through example videos. The Wiley Plus course includes approximately 45 example videos that feature professors walking through and demonstrating how to approach and solve fundamental example problems from the text. This visual walkthrough provides students with greater detail about problem-solving methodology and decision-making processes being used, along with 24/7 access to help and review when they need it. In addition, the Moran Thermodynamics course offers reserved problems, which are not available to students unless they are assigned. This allows you, as the instructor, to regulate who sees these questions and the solutions. In order to add these to an assignment, you can create or edit a previously created one. The easiest way to find a list of reserved problems is by searching for Reserve under More Filters. You will see here a full list of reserved problems come up corresponding to each chapter. And you can view each one by clicking on it, or you can add it to your course here. There are approximately 600 end-of-chapter algorithmic problems available in the new Wiley Plus course, with new values generated for each question. Each student receives individual numerical values for each of these problems, which requires them to find the correct solution on their own. Check Your Understanding questions are available after each section or assignment. There are approximately 700 questions included in the course to help students assess their readiness. These simple reading quiz type questions give students just-in-time self-assessment with immediate feedback, perfect for assigning as a pre-lecture exercise or for small group activities. The Moran Thermodynamics New Wiley Plus course equips you with resources such as tutorial problems, reserve problems, check your understanding questions, and algorithmic problems, among other tools, while providing students tools such as example videos and animations, among others, to help enhance the students' learning experience.
So I think what we've seen in that slide here, we're just trying to show faculty members and institutions, as well as the librarians, as to the extent at which Wiley has gone down to create solutions now in the teaching and learning area. So imagine earlier we mentioned we have close to about 17,000 over digital resources for the utilization of the institution across 10 subject disciplines. This solution not only allows faculty members now to build their courses, at the same time it also provides library with a suite of resources available that are really important to the teaching and learning of all these courses in the institution. So what we do is we provide ease of access, is seamless to use. The beautiful thing about the solution is that we have both online and offline access for students, any device, anytime. So students can download this. There are areas in Philippines whereby internet connection is still an issue. And what we allow the students to do is download them, so they don't need internet connection in order to read these contents and all that. And when they come back to an area where there is internet connection, whatever work that they have done within the solutions, they are able to upload it and submit it if it's required. So what we try to do is try and be as flexible as possible to ensure that each and every student is able to still continue to learned during this pandemic period of time and beyond. Everything that we do is we provide you with the content, resources. Everything will be done via the institution's learning management system. Very importantly, in majority of the institutions in Philippines are using a Moodle-based system. Some of them have also bought in the Canvas Blackboard systems, and Wiley has aligned itself to all of these systems. We are able to work with each and every one of these systems as we move along. And I think this is the most important part of it. It's not about a solution. It's not about something that Wiley has. It's about how do we make a difference now together with the higher education institutions, our partners. We spend a lot of time working with them on providing a solution on implementation, how we support both faculty as well as students. How do we engage both internally as well as externally to customers, so that it helps the institutions to bring in this, create this awareness for digital, as well as draw in students who are interested into coming into schools who are more digitally inclined. We also provide a lot of data statistics, as you can see on the right-hand side here, which we try and help institutions to monitor each and every student's progress, how the solution is now helping them transition into a digital environment, number of assignments created by faculty members, which are the top books being utilized by students, what are they reading. So this helps institution as well as management make decisions moving ahead. And that's why at the start of the presentation, I said that I do not think right now there is one solution that fits all, but it's more about moving ahead, trying first. As we move forward, we improve. We gain expertise and we gain experience as we go along. If you look at the OECD's recommendations also is, if you look at step 4, which I've highlighted in the red book, I think this is the part where Wiley is really focused on. We ensure adequate training of teachers and staff with the utilization of this solution. And we provide you with sufficient data to assess the effect of remote learning on students' competencies as we move along with all the reports that we can provide. What we do is we work on, once the institution decides to move on, we do an integration, we do a training and onboarding, we do engagement, we do regular reviews. And most importantly, all of these tasks are done to understand, to make sure that the universities and students succeed in this area. An example of a discovery workshop we did in Malayan Colleges, Mindanao. These are some of the tools that we provide to our customer, as well as 24/7 support in order to ensure that they are able to, what they call, they are supported well as we move along. Marketing support, we create digital contests, we create a lot of various different activities to engage. I think the most important word to use here is engage the customers, so that they feel comfortable, both students and faculties, as we move along. Some of the customers that we are working for, we worked in Indonesia with University Atmajaya Jogja, where they had about 12,000 over students. University Warmadeva, about 6,000. In the Philippines, we are working with New Era University. We have close to about 10,000 over students. Pastilia Mulia in the Indonesia. We are also working with the Yuchenko group across all 3 locations, close to about 16,000 students. We will also share this link from Sir Doji from Malayan Colleges Mindanao. He was the EVP and COO, and how they transition into a digital environment, how it helps. So it helps you to better understand how the solution is able to support institutions as they transition or they continue to accelerate in a digital environment? We are very, very focused on improving learning outcomes, and we do a lot of efficacy studies. In fact, this is one key area that Wiley is now investing heavily in. As we work with institutions, we also wish to find out how effective is it working. This was a study that we did in differential equations in 2016, whereby we did a research, and this paper was presented at the World Congress of Engineering in 2016, whereby it showed that our solution kind of was more effective than traditional lecture discussion methods in this subject. And I think a lot to do with it was the amount of practice that is provided to the students in differential equations that made this reading very, towards a digital environment. This is my last slide, I think. And what we're trying to do here is really trying to help students in these difficult times, in this COVID pandemic, and also to kind of help them to be well prepared and more, having the skill sets and competencies required during an industrial revolution 4.0 economy. And this was just one of the statements by one of the students at Malay Colleges Laguna that I wanted to share with the audience today. And with that, thank you for the time for the presentation. I would like to also take this opportunity to now introduce our next speaker, a very good friend of mine for the last 10 over years, Associate Professor Anna Cheryl Ramos from UST. She's a She is a certified e-learning specialist, and I've spent so much extensive time over the last few years with her. She's taught me a lot. She has a vast amount of knowledge in the areas of online development of courses, online development of platforms. She's able to work, and she spends a lot of time, I realize, to share these experiences. She's the chair of the e-learning society in Philippines. And I think this is going to be a very interesting session whereby she can share how effective LMS is online in a distant learning environment. Over to you, Ms. Ramos.
So good morning to our dear teachers, librarians, administrators. Thank you, Raj, for your kind introduction. I also would like to thank our organizers, the Philippine Librarians Association, Wiley, Network Learning PH, for the opportunity of engaging with you this morning. So I'm tasked to provide you with this topic extensively on learning management system and how it could be a solution, especially if your context is really embracing online distance learning. And I am telling you this because based on the Department of Education, if you're coming from basic education, there are 3 types of learning modalities that you can choose from. And so that is where I'm coming from. This is something that could benefit you if your institution is really embracing on online learning solutions. Now for this session as well, I'll be coming from the perspective of an e-learning leader or somebody from your institution thinking about how to improve the current services that you have in the delivery of your content. We will dive into what are some considerations when it comes to selecting our LMS, what are some of the best practices for utilizing this, or what are our expectations in terms of how can we make use of this and harness the power of our LMS for digital instruction. And hopefully you'll be able to get something out of this presentation and be able to use them successfully in your teaching and learning practices, as well as in your procedural task as an administrator. Now, in terms of the target audience for this, I understand majority of us are librarians. We also have teachers, and I also would want to speak for the administrators who are currently here, because I think that when you look at holistic view of adopting a platform, for example, you have to look at all of the stakeholders' perspectives. So you will be benefiting from this presentation. So if you're responsible for researching, purchasing, or influencing decisions related to learning technology solutions, and then you are tasked to scale your learning programs in an efficient manner, and then you improve that learning performance and positively influence the learning outcomes. At the same time, you can also be the chief learning officer. So you can be the head of the academics. You can be a learning manager, or an IT department head, because in some institutions, the ones making that decision is coming from the IT department. And of course, you are a librarian, looking into the possibility of bridging your digital content residing in the library system into the online learning environment, so where teachers and students are able to use them meaningfully in their courses. And the goal of really now is not to have our digital resources in the library in isolation. They must be readily available and can be used right away by your teachers and students. And I think that is what Raj has been mentioning in his presentation, how Wiley resources are not working in isolation and just residing in the library system, in the library department. Now, these are my talking points for this morning. So we'll be talking about the fundamentals and some of the features. We're going to talk about some of the long-term benefits and some of the expectations of faculty and students toward LMS. And at the last part, especially for those who are into decision-making, so let's look at some of the key challenges that you need to consider and overcome in terms of your LMS adoption, just in case you really want to jump into online distance learning. So as I've mentioned, we'll break this down into several subtopics given the limited time that we have. So I'll start with what an LMS is, especially for someone who's really not into the IT department. So just a basic definition here, although there are a lot of definitions, but the basic definition is that it is a software application that automates the administration, tracking, and reporting of your learning events. However, it's not that simple, especially that if your institution has adopted this in a holistic manner and you have involved several components into it. So that's why you can also call it as an enterprise learning ecosystem that is composed of multiple features and modules that you can expand so that you can tailor fit this to the unique requirements of your institutions. So aside from that, the usual definition would be that it enables the delivery of your materials, your resources, your tools, based on the learning design that you have set as an instructor. And at the end of the day, what you really wanted to know is that if you're able to deliver that learning outcomes so that your students will become future ready. And the last here is that it allows the teacher to tailor fit that instruction, and then later on our students are able to access that anywhere, anytime, without any geographic restrictions or constraints. I also would want to mention that there is a sub-definition of learning management system, and could be something that you have already encountered. So we also call this sub-definition as online course delivery platform. So what does it mean? So if you encounter the likes of Coursera, Udemy, edX, Udacity, Khan Academy, so these are platforms where you can create online courses as an individual, or you can sell your online courses if you're coming from an institution and you want to share this to a common platform. And any student across the world can in fact avail of your courses in a public manner, or you are able to finish that as an open course. So that's why you have the likes of the MOOCs or the massive open online course. However, this morning, I want to focus now on the elements in general. So here, so the concept of the elements that I'm supposed to provide this morning is that it is the one being adopted within the institution. So we're looking at here an example, the one we're doing with the Dominican province of the Philippines, wherein we're not just connecting just one institution, but different institutions with different branches. So if you're looking at just UST here, you're looking at a massive wide institutional e-learning adoption. But then you're looking at the different, let's say, the trans schools, about 5 of its branches. That's what you call the system-wide e-learning adoption. But if you're looking at this inter-universities merging together into one common platform, so we call that now as your network-wide e-learning adoption. Now let's proceed to how come institutions are adopting, let's say, a learning management platform. So first and foremost here, because we've seen that even before pandemic, we've seen that schools are really shifting from classroom to online learning. And what I mean by shifting is that the pandemic, in fact, has pushed us to revisit the way we deliver instruction. And in fact, prior to pandemic, there are a lot of progressive schools, not only in higher education, but as well as our basic education. They have moved their instruction online, probably halfway, about in the blended learning in the middle. And that's why a lot of them are already flipping their classrooms. And what is good with that is that they have that experience prior to pandemic. So they are already halfway within the e-learning spectrum. That makes it now easier during pandemic because all of us have moved to fully online or to full distance education, as compared to those coming from the other end of the spectrum, wherein you're coming from a fully face-to-face environment. So that's how wide is the jump in terms of the spectrum. So second reason is that there are institutions who are already LMS users. And the reason by choosing to invest even more is that they probably are not happy with what they have right now. And so most of them would, based on their roadmap, would have a regular, regular periodic evaluation. And then if they decide that this tool no longer works, then they have what they call a migration period, a planned migration period, so that you don't abruptly change the system within an institution, especially if they've been used to using that. So these are 2 reasons why institutions adopt a learning management platform. So another that I want to discuss a bit would be, when you adopt one, what are some of the deployment options, costs, and pricing models? So there are 3 types. First one is you buy a software and then install it in your system. So in this case, that you manage it in-house. The second is the third-party maintenance model. So the school buys the software, but then the maintenance and upgrades are being managed by the vendor or another third party. And then if you have a cloud service or a software as a service model, your institution buys the hardware, but it is not housed and managed remotely by a third party and administrators. And then, of course, your content builders and instructors and learners access the system over the internet all the time. And then, of course, costing is actually based on the number of users, or what we call as FTEs. And so the bigger the population is, the lower is the cost. So usually that is the guidance of our decision makers. And I also would want to mention, depending on the institution's decision, whether you will go cloud-based or something that is on-premise, or what we call this installed in your servers, you will have a difference in the way the cost will later on become. So first and foremost, it may appear to be expensive if it's on cloud, but eventually it will actually save you a lot because you don't have any servers to maintain. So another, you have an unlimited storage in the cloud as compared to having it on premise, wherein you are so dependent on the technical capability of your servers. And of course, if you have issues with security, some institutions doesn't want to go cloud because they think that the content is not, they are not in control of, it's not residing in their servers. And of course, what I like personally with cloud services is that there's no downtime. So in terms of the maintenance, as compared to having it on premise, wherein you need to stop everything if you're going to do something with your e-learning adoption. And of course, these are some more issues that part of the things that we need to think about. So is it highly customizable? That is what Raj was mentioning. Can I integrate third-party applications so I could expand what I could do inside my online class? How easy it is to be accessed, and of course, can I deploy it right away or not? So I think I've fairly talked about some of the considerations and options in terms of the pricing. Another is that when a vendor would actually approach you, then sometimes you are just thinking of the license fee, which is now being deducted from the tuition fee of our students. But you have to look into what are some of the additional consulting, technical configuration, and training. Does it go with it? Because sometimes you need to pay extra for having all of those additional requirements that you may need. So it has to be clear from your perspective. I also would want to share with you some of the LMS providers subscribed by schools in the Philippines. So on the upper part, you have those in alphabetical order, some of the most common ones that are being subscribed by schools. And so schools have different different perspectives, they have different goals, that's why they have different decisions. And so that is what you need to focus on. What is your objective, and how come this particular tool fits you fit as a solution in your instructional problems. Below that, you have also learning management systems. Just like what Raj mentioned, that Wiley has its own learning management system. But what is good with that is that it could integrate as well with a full-blown learning management system on top. And of course, you are familiar, if you're from the basic education, you are familiar with all of those. At the bottom, they are local publishing houses. They may have in-house learning management platforms. Of course, if you're coming from, if you have some issues with some of your finances, there are also free open educational resources and online collaboration platforms. They are given for free right now. And these are some of the things that I think you are familiar with, because it is being given for free as an institution, not just for one individual teacher. So for this to happen, your school must be able to sign up. So this is actually not bad at all if you will not go to something full-blown as an LMS. So for instance, the Microsoft Teams would allow you to set class content, sharing it within a class or a team that anyone in your organization could actually be able to access. So here you can tailor fit assignments with your students, and that include file links, rubrics, and more. And then you can choose third-party applications that could enhance your lesson unit or project. So there's an easy group creation and step-by-step support that your students would get. And of course, it offers a ton of options for integrating learning. So it may lack some of the typical LMS features, but it could make a better fit for small group or non-traditional group configurations. Of course, we are also familiar with the alternative, with equally alternative one if you are from the Google adapters. So we have Google Classroom, and as you can see, basically it looks like your basic LMS already. And so it comes both with asynchronous and synchronous tools that could actually help you out in delivering your online instruction. And a lot of schools are using this because they come free. And of course, if you want to test a full-blown learning management system, so if you log in at coursites.com, you get a free 10 course sites, so equivalent to your 10 classes. So not bad if you would want to dabble on what is really with a full-blown learning management system. So let's now look at some of the basic features. So first and foremost, not only that, we're looking at our learning content to be delivered effectively. We want, of course, to see to it that usability and accessibility be also as important. So no matter how many advanced features your LMS has, if there are no use from learners wherein they cannot navigate or they need constant support to operate, then it could also be useless. And the next would, of course, would be accessibility. How important for our learners to be provided with the right information at the right time. So the look, the feel, the usability is so important for our users to make use of the platform. Now, navigation, a dashboard is also important. And as you can see, a modern LMS comes with a user-friendly dashboard. You can look at the semblance of all of those learning management systems, wherein courses are placed like a tile, and students can go back and forth to the home page with just few clicks. We also need to look at whether our learning management system will be able to provide us with a fun, engaging, and experiential type of learning. So modern learners usually have some new age learning practices like gamification and social learning. So here you're looking at the dashboard. So sometimes it's so formal, and sometimes it could display points, budgets, progress notifications, sometimes social sharing options, so that you entice the learners to be active and be involved. Although this is a form of an extrinsic motivation, but of course, still it works for some students to be able to stay on the course, stay track on the course. Now, you are able to see here that our LMS must have what we call a mobile compatibility. So remember that our learners are most of the time making use of their mobile devices. So our learning management system must be able to be responsive to even up to what size of a device that our students may have. Okay, another feature is that our learning management system must be able, it's not just about digitization, but there are a lot of software out there that could be integrated and expand the capabilities of your learning management system. So you're seeing a lot of icons here, both for your Microsoft and your Google productivity tools. Are there asynchronous tools that could easily be integrated into the system? So these are some of the things we need to take into consideration. And of course, the one that was already mentioned by Raj a while ago, that your learning management system must be able to support purposeful e-learning design from credible and reputable sources, or because teachers do not have the time to create now their learning materials. Now, from here, I would show some of the connection, and I think it was already shown a while ago from another LMS perspective. So this is from the perspective of Blackboard's platform. So here, a teacher will be able to create an entry, and then all of your 17,000 resources could be chosen from by the teacher. And as you can see, the animations are already here. So teachers can just sequence that instruction depending on what was the course plan. And aside from that, you can have pre and post assignments created by subject matter experts, not just really the source of knowledge is the teacher. And then you also expect now these experts to be able to expand now or enrich the teaching and learning practices. And then you can also, of course, create your own way, your own personalized assignments, and improve on it, and try to contextualize this based on what you want to achieve as a learning outcome. And then here, you're also looking at automatic grading that is integrated when the students are able to answer all of the learning resources offered by a third-party tool, just like Wiley resources. And you're able to see here some of the variety of content. So you can have animations or videos, can also have quizzes that are already there. So the teacher will not have a hard time producing his or her content, especially if you have a lot of things to think about other than producing content. Okay, and the last feature that we need to be able to look into would be on the analytics, because there are reports from the perspective of the administrator that you need to generate so that you can evaluate the learner's progress. So from the teacher's perspective, yes, you need to look at the learner progress, provide opportunities for interventions and support. But for the perspective of the administrator, you want to look at the compliance and the achievement of outcomes, not just within one class, but you want to look at it from within a certain department and a certain college, for instance. Because at the end, in the accreditation, you have to show whether students are really achieving outcomes. You want to show that concrete data. And that is now being asked from not just local accreditors, but even international accreditors like ASEAN University Networks. So this is something really very important now. Now for some of the benefits of having an LMS. So let's try to look at some of the short-term and the long-term benefit. So first and foremost, if you were approached by a vendor, you probably would be surprised with the cost. Sometimes it's really so high because you are just looking at a small portion of your population. And of course, there are those that come for free, just like Google and Microsoft. But to be clear, an LMS is a significant investment. So depending on the scale, just like I've told you, and how many students you may have, so it could really be expensive from the onset, but later on you will see some of the savings. So you can save definitely on on paper for one, because you're not going to print anything. Another is that you can reuse the e-learning courses and assets and leveraging content from experts around the world for your own students. And that could actually save time of bringing an expert to your class. And then you can, as well as, if you are moving into fully digital approach, you can also eliminate the need for classrooms, for desks, for whiteboards, and even projectors. So that's the saving that I'm actually talking about. That's the first thing from the administrator's perspective. Now, for the teacher's perspective, of course, we spend hours grading and all that, but after the school day is over. But here, you will see automatic grading capabilities that are in the LMS, especially if you have online assessments. And so you eliminate that major teacher time suck perspective because you have spent a lot of your time checking. And then another is that it stores all of your content in one place. And so there is that safe repository of your content. And so it saves you time to reuse that the next year or the next school year. And there's also the time spent on actual instruction. So remember that if you can just record your lecture, then you need to do that in every class time. So that as well as saves you time in producing materials. So here, next would be better student outcomes. So you can now combine the best teaching strategies from your synchronous and asynchronous environment. So whether it is student-centric, teacher-centric, or team-centric approaches. So your learning management system is able to provide all of this in a digital perspective or digital platform. So next is that there's accessibility wherever students are, and then regardless of their location and regardless of the devices that they have, and because it offers a lot of flexibility. And of course, we have communication. So faster communication when it is online. Now, of course, we acknowledge that, especially if we're using a lot of social media tools. But here are some of the tools that are embedded in a common learning management system. And some you need to pay extra. For example, some elements doesn't have a built-in synchronous tool. So that's why a lot of schools are also subscribing to Zoom together with their learning management system. Next would be flexibility in terms of learning rates. And here you're able to see students, they could go back and forth, review content as needed. And so you can see that notification that you have done a particular learning material. And in this way, students are guided with the learning sequence, but they have the flexibility to go back and forth as compared to the traditional instruction, or if you're absent, then you probably don't have a copy of the real thing, of the real lecture. And another is that of the previous video that Raj mentioned, you're able to see multiple learning modes or a variety of content that are in there that are in fact allows you to deliver your content in a more enriching way. And if in this case, you have lessons that would require online collaboration, so there are built-in tools like blogs, wikis, and groups feature inside the learning management system that you need to harness as well. And the last, because I've mentioned about analytics, this is also as important and one of the benefits that we can get. This is something that is difficult really to be able to get when it comes to traditional instruction. The data analytics, because this time we need some continuous drive improvement. And therefore, with the embedded insights into the system, you're able to see the learner engagement and the academic performance. And so with the LMS platform having that built-in course reports, it provides us with that insight so that we provide the needed intervention and the data-driven decision. Now, in this next slide, you're able to see some of the course reports. You're able to see which of the content really had some students have problems with, where do they delve more, which among them really pass the test or not, so that it really gives you that perspective on how to better gauge the student learning experiences, so that you can later on improve it, not at the end of the semester, but in fact while the semester is actually going on. So you can generate that once in a while in your system, and sometimes it is something that is happening in the background. Now, I'm now in the third part of this presentation. Let's look at some of the stakeholders' expectations of the LMS. Remember that you have different stakeholders. So you have your teachers, you have the librarians, you have the students themselves, plus the administrators, the top level and middle management leaders. And they all help in making your e-learning adoption successful. Okay, but today we're just looking at 3 of the stakeholders. So let's look at the learning administrators. So from that perspective, you need to track courses. And with the LMS, you need to have some insights so that you can look at the learning process, performance of both the individual learners, the performance of the teacher while they're teaching online, and you need to be able to pull out that report. So that is an expectation when it comes to an e-learning adoption in school. You need as well to organize the learning content so that when there's an accreditor, you can readily show it. And in an instantaneous feedback, you're able to show it right away that you're able to hit now the outcomes that you have set as an institution. And then you're able to train large group of learners simultaneously across the institution. Now, for the teachers, an expectation is that this LMS must be able to have my assessments in place. So whether these are alternative or whether these are your traditional objective types, and I should be able to deliver learning on time and everywhere. I could reuse some of these learning materials, and I could ensure that quality across different sections that I teach, and be able to enrich my learning practices by hooking up some of these third-party platforms. And if I'm now selling my courses, I should be able to provide certificates to my students and give them instant notifications if I need some announcements. Now, for the learners, of course, the expectation for a self-directed learner is that on their own, they must be able to learn at greater depth for a longer time. They must be able to access this self-paced as much as possible because of the flexibility that we are aiming for. We want to have an immediate access to learning, both offline and offline. That is an expectation. But of course, we want our students to be accommodated depending on their needs. At the same time, they should have more control over their learning anytime and anywhere, because at the end, we want them to own their learning at the same time. Now, in the last part of this presentation, I'll be discussing key challenges and solutions in LMS adoption. Now, as I've mentioned, this is more of the perspective of an administrator. There are a lot of issues that I need to think about if I'm from that perspective. First and foremost, I need to make sure that I need to accommodate the different stakeholders' needs, including the number of current users, and whether or not this could be fairly consistent all throughout, because when I subscribe to a learning management system, usually I'm going to have a lock period for the contract. So where are our students located? Are there approaches that I need to consider, whether the courses are in the blended mode or are we going to have a full-blown mode? And all of those benefits that I want to reap out of adopting the learning management system are all of the challenges that I need to consider. And for most of the schools, the first hurdle is, of course, is their budget available? Is it something affordable? If you can look at it as a solution, let's say really deciding that this is what I really want for the school, for me to be able to conduct an online distance learning. There are 3 stages to purchasing a new tech solution. Usually you define the problem that you want to aim for, you identify a solution, and you select a supplier. That's 1 to 3, in fact. However, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't guarantee that when you adopt an LMS, everything will work. It has to start from a vision, a clear vision that you have. So you have to have a visionary leadership in your institution, and that later on you should have several types of leaders along the way. Like you need to have systemic leaders who will later on cascade it to the different levels and stakeholders. You should also have transformational leaders that will actually move everyone in the teaching and academic workforce to embrace modern teaching and learning. You should also have the technical expertise from your IT department to be able to maintain an intelligent environment and be able to make your institution digital resilient. That's why you have a technology blueprint that is future-proof in case things might happen differently in the future. So it's not just an LMS that we are aiming for. It's a holistic view of the solution. So if we are fixed with this, we are clear with what we want, then we could actually go for some of the checklists. I'll just go through with this, but there are actually like about 12 steps that you need to take into consideration. So we'll just look at this. First and foremost, you need to identify your assets first before you jump into buying and talking to suppliers, because you might have them already. Like you might have your Google already, you might have your Microsoft already. So why proceed with the rest of the next steps? So number 2, if not, then you still proceed with pinpointing your objectives. What are your needs? Is this the best solution? Where am I here in the e-learning spectrum? Am I in the blended learning, or am I in the fully online? Or am I just into a technology-rich classroom? We're in a lot of progressive schools in basic education have been before pandemic. Okay, so third here, you determine your learning architecture. Are you going to have a lot of teacher-centric approaches? Are you going to have a lot of student-centric approaches? Then you need to take that into consideration here. So number 4, you look at your functional and budgetary requirements. Is there really a source of funds for this? And then you meet and assess some of the potential vendors based on the objective that you have. Okay, number 6, 7, and 8, that's the time you request for a proposal. And then you evaluate the proposal based on the support options and cost. And before you really embark into this, because later on you'll be able to close a deal, number 8 is important, because do you have an e-learning team in place? Because if not, if it's going to be on the shoulder of an IT team, then e-learning is not just about technology. It's all about the meaningful interplay of your content, your pedagogy, and technology. So just an IT team may not work. So you need to have an e-learning team prepared for this. And of course, you need to designate team leaders or project leaders to be able to follow through your project. And number 10, you shortlist your LMS based on capability, let's say to top 3 of your choices, and then you develop your test cases. Test cases means here you evaluate based on the administrative perspective, you evaluate based on teacher's perspective, and then you evaluate based on student perspective. So these are some of the things that each of the stakeholders should look into when they evaluate your learning management system. So including the librarians, being able to integrate some of the digital resources from the library into the learning management system. And then don't forget that in the last, be able to demand pilots, sandboxes, testing, test runs before you really sign into a document, because this is the time wherein you will want to surface a lot of errors from the one that you have already you think selected. Okay, and then of course the next generation of online learning platforms, we're talking a lot of our Gen 2 and our Gen 1 LMS, but our Gen 3 types of learning management system integrates artificial intelligence in the matter. So here we're looking at artificial intelligence being able to push content based on the needs of the learners in an instantaneous manner. It's becoming more personalized, becoming more automated. And in every part of the learning process, the artificial intelligence in the background is able to provide that support and scaffolding without really much of the teacher intervention. So for example, in this image, that if a student is able to answer this assessment and the student failed in the assessment, it is the AI in the background who's going to provide now additional learning materials as a scaffold to the learners, and then provide another test before moving into the next content without the teacher actually doing that. So all the teacher would do is to prepare all of these alternative pathways. And it's the AI was going to provide that personalized learning journey to the students. So I'm now in my last slide. And before I end, I would want to impart this, that excellent teaching is excellent teaching. And conversely, ineffective teaching is ineffective teaching, whether the environment is classroom-based, online, blended, or hybrid, with or without an LMS. So again, thank you po for your listening, and a pleasant good morning to everyone.
Thank you, Associate Professor Cheryl Ramos, for excellently sharing to us how effective an LMS can be in our OTL work. We now proceed to the last session for our talk number 3, entitled Future Ready Graduates, Developing 21st Century Skills Through Digital Learning Spaces. Our guest speaker is a technology integrator and consultant, researcher, scholar, writer, editor, and educator. He is recognized locally and internationally as an Apple Distinguished Educator, Google Certified Educator Level 2, Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert, and Microsoft Certified Educator. Currently, he is the Research and Immersion Coordinator of the Senior High School of De La Salle Santiago Zobel School, an Apple Distinguished School in the Philippines. He took his Doctor of Philosophy in Philippine Studies, Language, Culture, and Media at De La Salle University, Manila. He is also a graduate of Bachelor of Secondary Education, major in Filipino at Philippine Normal University, Manila. He is also the current president of Network Learning PH Incorporated. Let us all welcome Dr. Henry Lee Magais.
Okay, good morning. I hope clear yung aking audio. Okay, so for today's conversation, siguro maganda rin yung timing that I am the last resource speaker to discuss or to converse with you. So for this convo this morning, allow me to give you some reflective points, some ideas. How can we ensure that our graduates, our learners, are future ready? Okay, so for our convo today, para lang sure ako, pwedeng paki-comment sa ating chat box kung malinaw ako. Para lang sure at in case may concern, we can adjust accordingly. Okay? So for today, I'll be sharing with you the 21st century skills expected from our learners, from our educators, and from our environment as well. Oh, choppy yung audio. Okay, loud and clear. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you po for verifying or for affirming that okay po yung aking audio. Okay, so going back, so for today's conversation, allow me to give you a walkthrough on what are the expectations from us educators, from us. Pag sinabi ko pong educators, hindi ito limited sa teachers in particular because I would like to believe that as librarians, as staff, as teachers, as administrators, we are all part of that educator circle wherein we are expected to perform different tasks, but at the end of the day, we are leading towards one clear goal, and that is to make sure, to ensure that our learners are all future ready. Okay? So balik lang tayo ng konti ng mabilisan. Every time na mai-invite ako to discuss this particular topic, I would like to start, as always, my conversation with you by asking you, ano ba yung role natin as education? Ano ba yung role natin as educators, as librarians? Maybe we are coming from different contexts. We are coming from different understanding, different preparations. But at the end of the day, from my title itself pa lang, very clear that we are all here to prepare our learners, to prepare our students in that real life situation waiting for them. And when we talk about that real life scenario, I would like to describe that real life scenario with you by showing this video. Sir, please.
Guys, I just got us a meeting with Vivian.
What? How?
I just bumped into her.
And what, you just asked for a meeting?
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do?
Actually,
When?
just now.
No, when's the meeting?
Oh, Thursday, 8 a.m.
Next Thursday.
Yes,
No. This Thursday.
What? That's impossible.
we can do this, okay? Round Box is back.
It's just a sketch. That's all we have.
2 days? We need 2 weeks.
This is how we get off this floor.
Dave, can you get some sales figures on pizza boxes?
I feel sick.
It's so simple. Round pizza, round box. Perfect.
Hey, who's hungry?
We have to prove what's wrong with pizza boxes.
They're square.
Wasted space.
Yeah.
Do I really have to go see Mike in finance?
Yep.
Hey, Mike. I was wondering if you could send me the thing.
Inbox.
We have this idea. We need some sort of 3D prototype.
I gotta pick up the kids.
I just want to get you all together. We need to find a name for the box.
Roundabout.
Squircle?
Circle box?
Who's that?
Hey, Siri, turn on Do Not Disturb. Brian.
I'm awake!
Hey, Siri, tell Bridget I'm running late.
No. This is wrong. This is all wrong.
Dave, can you please double check those figures for us?
Anyone here from Eden Warehouse?
He's putting together the prototype now.
What are you guys working on?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Move that over there.
Make that title bigger.
Guys?
We're almost there.
You know how it works. I mean, I don't even...
What are you doing, bud? Hey, can I have that back?
I'll email you the video.
Just airdrop it to me.
Sweet. You guys, I just got the prototype.
Whoa. This is gonna look so good in the presentation. Awesome.
Wow.
I'm awake.
time.
Did anyone press a button?
Okay. As we all saw, no, in the video, we were able to see a different real life scenario or situation waiting for our learners. Most especially now that we transition from our own or used to be normal from our new normal right now, we are expected to prepare them for that quote unquote real life scenario. So for this conversation, gusto kong gamitin natin again katulad ng binanggit ko kanina as our point of discussion, as our point of reflection. How can we ensure that readiness among our learners? So first, maybe maganda na mapag-usapan muna natin or individually, no, sa harap ng mga gadgets or mobile learning devices ninyo right now, I guess we need to ask ourselves, what is our end in mind? When I say end in mind, yes, you have your own end in minds end in mind rather as an institution, as an organization, as a department probably, or as a teacher. Okay? But at the end of the day, we need to give our learners clear understanding what are we expecting from them. Kumbaga, if a student, no, is currently enrolled in University of the Philippines, what are we expecting from a UP graduate? For example, if a student is studying in Ateneo de Manila University, what are we expecting from a ADMU, no? From an ADMU student at the end of the day, etc., etc. What is our end in mind? Or clearly, okay, or relevantly, we need also to align our end in mind with the end in mind of our institution. Kasi hindi po pwedeng yung direction ng captain ng boat ay different from your end in mind as a teacher, as a librarian, as an administrator, etc., etc. Next, number 2, let's talk about our relevance as an institution, as an organization. Ang tanong dito probably is hindi na are we still relevant, but how can we ensure our relevance as an institution, as an organization? And we can only do that if and only if, no? Title ko pa lang kanina, super emphasized na ito. How can we prepare them not only to be college ready? For example, if we're working sa basic education, no, hindi na lang, in fact, kahit nga yung college readiness ay nagbago na yung paradigm right now. Before, we need to prepare them for SATs, for exams, etc., etc. But now, the sole basis is their grades kasi mahirap yung physical contact. So, how can we prepare them for the real life situations waiting for them? And pinakamahalaga, how can we make all of them career ready? Napakaganda, no, with the senior high school program happening now. From high school pa lang, naka-strand na sila, naka-particular field na sila. Ang tanong, how can we ensure that they are also career ready at the end of the day? Kasi we need to admit, hindi lahat ng kids talaga pang college. Yan yung medyo downside ng ating educational system right now. Lahat expected lang to be college ready, no, after basic education. But in reality, meron talagang mga learners na hindi para sa college. And we also need to prepare them sa ganitong perspective. Okay? Now, let's go back to our main point. When we talk about future readiness, no, from our learners, we need to prepare them from the beginning pa lang. Or particularly, we need to prepare them from inside pa lamang nung ating respective classroom. And if you will ask me, what is my concept of that future-ready learning environment, I would like to describe that quote-unquote future-ready classroom using this video. Sir, please.
It was a warm spring morning down at the Main Street schoolyard. Excitement was in the air. "Hey, check this out," said Charlie. "The school's Going Places contest has been announced. Come on, let's go get our kits." And so the kits were handed out. Everyone identical. Everyone with a set of precise instructions. Each student set off to work. Charlie knew how to follow directions. He made great progress and was quite proud of his work. Meanwhile, Maya was taking her time. She watched the world around her, noticing other ways things go places. The next morning, Charlie was finished and carefully inspected his work. But a noise interrupted his thoughts. "Wow," said Charlie. "What is that? You didn't follow the directions, did you?" "I started to," said Maya, "but I wanted to try something different." Maya, what does that have to do with a go-kart?" asked Charlie. "Who said it has to be a go-kart?" Suddenly, my project doesn't look very exciting." "Oh, but you're a great builder," said Maya. "Hey, maybe we should work together." And so they did. First, they compared notes. Charlie was good at details. Maya, good at dreaming up ideas. Each had a different approach to getting things done. Then they got to work. Side by side, they helped one another to build something new, something inspired, something spectacular. The next morning, everyone gathered for the final challenge, the big race. Each student stood alongside his or her finished project, each cart a perfect replica. Well, almost perfect. "Ready?" asked Charlie. "Ready as I'll ever be," said Maya. Some of the other students weren't so convinced. "Ha! You may think you're going places, but you're just going to lose."
"Students, start your engines. On your mark. Get set."
Charlie shouted, "Maya, they're all ahead of us. What are we waiting for?" "No worries," said Maya. "Flaps down, throttle up." "What? Whoa, did you see that?" "And we have our winners." Charlie and Maya were ecstatic. "We did it! We finished," said Charlie. "Finished? I don't think so. We've only just begun." "Right. Flaps down, throttle up." And off they went. They really were going places. They were going above and beyond.
Okay. So, di ba nakita natin, no, how different, no, yung perspective ng 21st century learning environment, and to give us common understanding on what to expect from a 21st century learning environment, or gusto kong tawagin yan as future-ready learning environment, magkaroon lang tayo ng some sort of review, no? Para lang kumbaga nasa common understanding tayo, nasa common grounds tayo when we talk about 21st century learning environment. Kasi I'm sure mahirap naman na mag-racing na tayo or tumakbo na tayo nang hindi pa pala pare-pareho yung ating starting point, no? Yung iba ni hindi pa nakapag-rubber shoes, or yung iba ni hindi pa pala alam na meron palang racing na magaganap. Okay? So let's talk about the 21st century framework, particularly, no, as projected now sa mga screening nyo. We have key elements when we want to talk about 21st century framework. First, let's talk about the green part of the framework, the life and career skills. So when we talk about future-ready learning environment, we need to consider not only the competencies or the expectations dictated by Department of Education or the Commission on Higher Education. We need to prepare our learners using the life and career skills expected from them even 5, 10, 15 years from now. So ang challenge dito, how can we assume, as early as, for example, if we are a kinder teacher, how can we assume that life and career skills waiting for him or her if kinder siya and he or she will study 10 to 15 years from your current year wherein you are handling him or her? Okay, so that's the challenge. Second, we will also talk about in a while the learning and innovation skills, no, according to this framework 5 C's, pero super dami na ng C's na na-add, no, as the years, kumbaga, progress or evolve. Okay, so we'll talk about some key concepts of that innovation skills after this slide. So yun yung nasa color blue. Now let's talk about the purple part of the framework, the information, media, and technology skills. Enough na ba, for example, we purchase computer laboratories? Is that ICT na, integration? Or second, probably, bili tayo ng tablets or mobile learning devices. Like for example, in Pasig, the current mayor, Vico Soto, provided 1 tablet per learner or laptop. So okay na ba yon, Sir Henry? Pwede na ba yon for information technology integration? Or we focus not on the quantity rather, but we focus on the quality of technology integration. Ang ganda nung binanggit ng speaker before me, yung kanyang TPAC framework na initially binanggit, the combination of your content, your knowledge, second, your pedagogy, your strategies as a teacher, with great integration of technology. So the content, the technology, and your pedagogy. Next, no? Yes, we want to prepare them for that life and career expectations waiting for them. We want to give them learning and innovation skills. We want to give them information, media, and technology skills. But of course, our main priority at the end of the day is the core, the anchor of the framework. Yung nasa orange part ng framework, the key subjects, the 21st century themes, particularly reading, writing, and arithmetic. Siyempre, hindi naman sila matututo ng life and career, innovation, ICT skills kung hindi sila marunong magbasa, magsulat, at magbilang. Ito pa rin yung main goal or main anchor ng ating framework. And how can we ensure na magagawa natin yung 4 na part ng framework? Let's go down to sa parang Wi-Fi signal pababa. First, we need to adjust our standards, our assessments. Ako personally, hindi ako naniniwalang kailangan pa nating i-prioritize right now that we are in ODL setup, yung mga knowledge level, pwede nating gamitin yan as formative, pero hindi graded. Instead, we can focus or we can refocus our understanding, our lenses to project-oriented assessments. No? Understanding level assessments. No? Performance-based assessments to ensure the authenticity of our assessments. Number two, we are all also expected to adjust our curriculum and instruction. For example, in De La Salle Zubel, we did our curriculum audit, no? Prioritize namin alin lang sa mga competencies na ito yung kaya at hindi magiging overwhelming sa learners natin. We also adjusted our instruction, no? From the face-to-face traditional understanding, we're in one subject, no? Is expected to meet the class 1 hour per day. We decided to make it 30 minutes this time. Kasi may mga i-consider din tayo like screen time, no? Yung level of sabihin nating preparedness din ng learners natin sa mga ganitong setup, etc., etc. Number 3, professional development. Of course, as learners, or rather as educators, no? We are expected to improve ourselves as well. Baka mamaya na pag-iiwanan na tayo. And when I say professional development, yung mga ganitong sponsored by Wiley ay isa sa pinaka-perfect professional development na pwede ninyong ma-explore. Hindi na uso ngayon sasabihin yung walang pinrovide yung school na webinar o seminar, although highly appreciated kung may mga isa-set up yung school, pero marami na ngayong available online na pwede nating i-explore. And lastly, tingin ko pinaka-obvious na ito at this point, papaano natin mabibigyan ng understanding or clear setup yung ating learning environment right now. Obviously, nasa uncontrolled learning environment tayo wherein hindi natin alam ano ang nangyayari doon habang tayo ay nasa sarili nating environment as educators. But at the end of the day, yung end in mind natin yung pinakamahalaga. At the end of the day, we are expected to prepare our learners for that real-life scenario waiting for them. And we can only do that if we can ensure the following learning and innovation skills. Number one, we are expected to spark curiosity among our learners. No? Kasi yung curiosity na ito yung nagda-drive for our learners to ask questions, no? To seek answers in particularly. Naniniwala ako na kung mawawala itong curiosity, mawawala yung innovation. Why? Kasi kung hindi na curious yung mga innovators natin right now, baka hanggang ngayon wala pa rin tayong ilaw, wala pa rin tayong internet, wala pa rin tayong comfort lives at the end of the day. No? Number two, let's talk about creativity. We want our learners to be inspired, to be creative learners. Kaya sinusulong kong maigi yung mga project-based model na yan kasi dyan mapapalabas yung creativity ng learners natin. Wag natin masyadong i-focus yung sarili natin sa mga control issues natin. Like for instance, pag nagpapagawa tayo ng output, Times New Roman 12, 1-inch margin, ganito, ganyan. Don't get me wrong. Alam ko mahalaga din yung discipline, but your conversation should not stop from expected our learners to be disciplined. Kailangan we inspire them to be creative as well. Kumbaga, ang sinasabi kong linya dito lagi, marami na tayong brand ng sabon. Lahat na naisip right now. Pero yung pinaka-creative yung magsa-stand out at the end of the day. Okay? Next, number 3, we free their imagination. Okay? We free their imagination. Huwag nating ibigay lahat. Okay? Huwag nating hayaan na lahat ay naka-spoon-fed na sa kanila. We allow them to imagine. Essential skills din ito for innovation. Okay? Next, of course, hindi naman po pwede na puro lang imagination, hindi naman po pwedeng puro ganda lang, kumbaga. Okay? We need to empower them to think critically as well. Ibig sabihin, double expectations ito. If we want our learners to think critically, we are also expected to ask them with critical questions. Hindi sila mag-iisip critically if our questions ay nakarely pa rin heavily doon sa mga knowledge level understanding. We need to start encouraging critical thinking from our learners. Okay? Next, communication. Marami ng modes, marami ng medium. How to communicate their learning. Ano lang ang bottom line sa item na ito? We need to give them opportunity to communicate their ideas. Not only inside your learning environment, not only sabihin nating among yung mga peers nila or sa mga classmates nila, but we allow them to communicate their ideas, their innovations outside your learning environment. No? Dun sa real life world waiting for them. For example, if you're expecting your learners to come up with a business plan, then you allow the market to listen to them, or you allow your learners to communicate their ideas dun sa market, particularly expected na pupuntahan ng mismong idea ng project. If your project, for example, is related to a community project, then you allow them to communicate their ideas in the community, no, with government officials, etc., etc. Okay? And lastly, we need to strengthen collaboration among our learners. Again, hindi na lang ito among the learners. Pwede rin mangyari yung collaboration between the student, the learner, the teacher, the community, the alumni, and the different sectors to make the learning environment more authentic and more inclined doon sa future readiness na pinag-uusapan natin. Okay? Now, let's talk about our modern learners. Sino nga ba yung mga modern learners na ito? Allow me to introduce them using this infographics. Tingin ko napaka-obvious na nito, pero sila yung mga learners na meron tayo right now. Or, should I say, tayo as educators ay part din ng data na ito. May multiple accounts, maraming social media platforms na ginagamit at ina-explore, and for them, mas nagiging malaya sila to express themselves using these media platforms. Okay? Tingnan natin halimbawa yung sa Facebook. So, kung titignan natin, lahat na ng references ginamit ko dyan, ang challenge natin dito, paano natin magagawa ng paraan yung napakalaking gap between the profile of our educators and the profile of our learners. Kasi yung learners natin, pwedeng manggaling lang dito sa digital natives. No? O Gen Next or Gen Z or mga natives kung tawagin. Pero kung yung educators natin yung pag-uusapan natin, pwede silang manggaling from next gen, Gen Y, or the millennials generation hanggang dun sa baby boom generation. So dito pa lang, kitang-kita natin yung napakalaking gap between the learners and our educators. So ang challenge dito, paano natin mailalagay to our advantage yung ganitong culture na meron sa mga learners natin? Na yung kanilang level of happiness, level of contentment, naka-rely heavily on number of likes, number of shares, na katulad natin. But at the end of the day, I want to see things positively. Naniniwala ako na yung mga learners na ito, sila pa rin yung core bakit natin pine-perform yung mga duties natin as educators. And they have message for all of us. Let's watch this video.
Do you recognize me? Very soon I will be your student. But I will not always sit in your classroom. I will not take out a pencil or open a textbook. You grew up with books. I read from a laptop, an iPad, a smartphone. I use a keyboard more than a pen. I'm a digital native, an active learner. Why carry just a textbook when my iPad connects me to the world? I want to know things all the time, and right away. Maybe the best price for cool shoes, or where to hike the Himalayas. To learn, I look online, because the classroom isn't enough for me. Not when I can see faces, hear voices, and chat with people on the other side of the world. I want to learn about Chinese history from someone in Beijing. My school has to keep up with me, not the other way around. I have more and more choices. When you were my age, no one had heard of a charter school. No one could imagine a virtual school. But it's projected that by 2019, half of all high school courses will take place online. I use mobile devices to connect with friends, classmates, and teachers. And when I'm more connected, I'm more interested. I don't buy music at a store, or movies or books. I get them instantly online. And when they excite me, I share with friends. That's how I want my education to be. I need a degree even more than my parents. I know it, and so do my friends. But will I be prepared? Public grade schools are under huge budget pressures, and traditional college is increasingly unaffordable. I don't want crushing debt. If I can Google the best choice for cool shoes, rest assured I'll find the best choice of education, like 2-year institutions and online courses where students like me have grown to be 6 million strong. And when I'm older, I want to keep learning. Do you recognize me? Very soon, I will be changing the world. But I need you. If you're ready to help me, I'll find you. But it's your challenge to keep up with me. I'm a digital native, an active learner. Listen to me, help me. Together, we can create the future.
Okay. To summarize, no, our modern learners, no, can be described using 4 points. Number 1, very impatient. I'm sure mag-a-agree tayong lahat when I say impatient yung ating learners. In fact, sa recent studies na meron tayo, they can only tolerate under 5 minutes video. So ang tanong, magiging okay na lang ba tayo kung ganun sila? Or, pwede nating baliktarin yung perspective. Kasi ako naniniwala ako na yung haba o ikli ng isang video material ay highly dependent, no, sa uri ng material na ginagamit natin. No? We need to evaluate yung video ba na ito ay magiging appealing sa learners natin? Yung video ba na ito ay magiging sabihin nating relevant sa ating learners? Then, ito sa palagay ko yung mag-a-address nitong item number 1. Okay? Number 2, very visual yung ating learners. No, gustong-gusto nilang manood ng videos, pero again, balik tayo sa item number 1. Number 3, untethered, no? Very mobile. Kaya nga, itong nangyaring pagbabago sa educational system natin right now, no, sa ODL setup, nakita natin kung papaano malaking bagay sa kanila na very mobile sila. Kahit na tayo, di ba? Kapag ang tagal na nating nakaupo, nasa labas tayo, nasa bahay tayo, and yet we want to make some movements, no? Gusto nating lumabas, explore ang mga bagay-bagay, and same ito sa expectations sa learners natin. Okay? And number 4, social. No? Very sociable yung mga batang ito. Gustong-gusto nilang mag-collaborate. Gustong-gusto nilang i-share yung ideas nila. When we ask them to perform a set of assessments, no? Kailangan hindi ito yung mga pagpinasa nila, hindi na nila malalaman kung ano yung mangyayari. In fact, we need to ensure enough feedback mechanisms. Kaya ang ganda nung diniscuss ni Ma'am kanina on LMS. Kasi without feedback, nawawala o nakakat yung connection between the learner, the teacher, and the assessment in particular. Okay? So at the end of the day, ganito sana yung itsura ng ating learning environment. Sir, please.
Settle, please. Eyes up here. Eyes up here. We're not done. Group 3. Let's have Ivy and Michael, Ryan, Sally, and settle, please. Eyes up here. Eyes up here. We're not done. Group 3. Let's have Ivy and Michael, Ryan, Sally, and Thomas. Thomas, your homework is to explore gravity. Okay, don't forget, projects are due on Friday. Friday, please. Friday, and don't forget your homework.
Homework. Oh, homework. I hate you. You stink. I wish I could wash you away in the sink.
Guys ready?
If only a hippo would smash you to bits. Homework. Oh, homework.
Did we get it?
You're giving me fits.
That's amazing! Yeah!
I'd rather take baths with a man-eating shark, or wrestle a lion alone in the dark, eat spinach and liver, pet 10 porcupines, then tackle the homework my teacher assigns.
Action! Dad!
Homework. Oh, homework. You were last on my list. I simply can't see why you even exist. If you just disappeared, it would tickle me pink.
Next up, Group 3.
Homework. Oh, homework. I hate you. You stink.
Okay, few years ago, nilabas ng World Economic Forum ang data na ito. No, according to them, 2015, ito yung top 10 skills expected from our learners after school. Complex problem solving, coordinating with others, people management, etc., etc. But in the same document, no, they discussed that after 5 years, ganitong kabilis yung magiging movement. Kita natin, for example, dati Yung critical thinking, number 4, tumaas ito to number 3. Yung creativity from number 10, tumaas ito to number 3, etc., etc. We cannot control the order. We cannot control the ranking. Especially now with COVID-19, po pwedeng after pang mag-2020 or 2021, maging iba na ulit ito at the end of the day. So ang tanong, how can we ensure that our learners will still be future ready despite yung mga movements na nangyayari in our country or in the world? Pwede nating gamitin yung framework, no, by 21st century skills or yung essential skills we're in when we are preparing our learning environment, our educators, our documents, our learners. We need to take into consideration, kumbaga, yung tatlong essential points na ito ng framework. So meron tayong tinatawag na foundational literacies, may mga competencies related to 21st century, and character qualities. Under foundational literacies, no, andyan yung literacy, numeracy, scientific literacy, literacy, cultural and civic literacy. Under competencies, ito yung mga inisa-isa ko kanina, critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration. Pero at the end of the day, dito papasok yung role natin as educators. Dito papasok yung essential role natin, kaya anuman ang maging movement, anuman ang maging pagbabago, hindi tayo pwedeng basta-basta palitan as educators. Okay? Dito pumapasok yung character qualities na tayo as educators yung may mahalagang role. Particularly, andyan yung curiosity, yung initiative na hindi kayang ituro basta-basta yan ng mga computer lamang. Yung persistence o grit na tinatawag, yung sense of adaptability, leadership, and social and cultural awareness. At the end of the day, gusto kong mag-reflect tayo, hearing all our talks, kumbaga, what do you think is your role now as a teacher? Hindi na natin gagamitin tong Mentimeter kasi I am overtime na ng 4 minutes. But I would like to invite all of you to post a comment na lang siguro sa ating chat box, expressing yourselves after experiencing COVID-19, after hearing different webinars probably. What do you think now is your role as educator, as librarian, as administrator, and kung ano man yung role or particular tasks you are expecting or expected to perform in this challenging time. Maraming salamat po, and I'll be open for Q&A later on. And naka-flash sa screen if you wish to connect with me. Andyan po yung mga details kung saan nyo po ako pwedeng mahanap. Please feel free to coordinate or contact with me. Maraming salamat po sa Wiley for inviting us, no po, particularly yung Network Learning PH Incorporated. God bless everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Henry Magahis, for helping us appreciate the importance of digital learning spaces and 21st century skills. We now proceed to the open forum. If you have a question, type Q plus the question in the chat box. Let me now read some earlier questions posted in the chat box from Ms. Regina Rose Regidor. How would a librarian / educator in the rural areas be able to cope in addressing distance learning in times of crisis? Anybody can probably, from the panel, can answer.
Okay, siguro ako na, sir.
All right, Dr. Henry, sige po.
I think, no, Maganda yung nakita kong discussion kanina ni Ma'am yung sa UST. Sorry, hindi ako magaling sa sa mga names But I think pinakamahalaga right now is for us to assess our limitations muna. Okay? For sure, magkakaiba tayo ng context. Depende sa region, depende sa province, iba-iba tayo ng pinanggagalingan, iba-iba tayo ng level of preparation, of understanding, and yung kakayanan din natin as an institution. We need to start from there. Okay? Ako, particularly, kung hindi natin kaya nga maganda rin yung model ng DepEd right now at ng CHED, yung tinatawag nating blended learning. Kung hindi kaya both ng learners at ng educators, wag po nating ipilit. Kasi at the end of the day, ang mahalaga ay ma-perform natin yung end in mind natin at ito yung goal, yung target na meron kayo as an institution. So kung hindi kaya yung internet kasi walang-wala talaga, hindi kaya ng resources available, then we can go to modular. Ngayon, kung hybrid, for example, mahina yung internet, meron, pero hindi, di mag-hybrid program. Pwedeng at certain days, distance learning kayo, at some parts, naka-modular kayo. So you need to start from your own circle. Okay? Kasi magkakaiba tayo ng context. I-maximize natin yung binibigay sa ating freedom ng DepEd at ng CHED to explore our own limitations. Then from there, saka tayo makakapag-decide kung ano yung pupuntahan natin.
I totally agree with Dr. Henry. When it comes to assessing what we have at the moment, let's maximize what we have, and also let's not just look from the inside. We also need to look at in a holistic manner. Let's assess what is now being given by our schools, because it could be that we already have the resources inside our own schools. And it would be better if we do it in a collective manner rather than be alone. Because most of the time when we have support from our institution, everything else will become easier rather than having the burden just with us. And again, I would also support what he said about the flexibility that the higher education, the Commission of Higher Education, as well as with the DepEd, because they have already pre-assessed this before of the current situation and how we can contextualize it based on the situation that we have. So in this case, if really there's no internet connection, then we should not really make use of a learning management system that has high immediacy, for example, and high bandwidth requirements. So we could probably just settle with our printed modules because that is the best solution for the context that you have. So in essence, context is very important. And you can recombine some of them in order to fit to your solutions.
Thank you, Dr. Henry and Ms. Cheryl, for sharing your responses to the question. I think this question is for Ms. Cheryl. From Mr. Miguel Jose, the question is, how can teachers and students adjust well to online distance learning?
So let's start with the perspective of the teacher. So sa teacher natin, we have capacity building that has to be in place in the institution. So sabi natin, if a school would subscribe to an e-learning adoption tool, part yan, no? So part ng pinoprovide ng provider you have those initial capacity building, but that will not last. You have to have your own faculty development program that is standard across your institution, so that later on you move everyone in one direction, you speak one language, and that you have also outcomes that you are monitoring in terms of your faculty members. So you want to look at to what are the skills and pedagogical as well as technological that must be there in order for them to become a better online instructor or a better distance educator. On the part of the students, they also need support in a sense that they as well need some study skills that are appropriate for the learning environment. Remember that the expectation today is that our learners are self-directed. And so those skills that go with it in that spectrum must as well be developed among our students. Unfortunately, we thought that they are very good with technology, but in reality, they are very good with technology and using it for gaming and social media, but not really doing that effectively in an online setting. So that is something that we need to address as a gap, so that they can make use of their knowledge of being these digital natives to be very good as well in the online learning environment. So both need support from the institution, that we don't want them to swim on their own. We want the institution to be able to support these stakeholders so that they become better online teacher, and they can also become better online student at the same time.
Thank you, Ms. Cheryl. This third question is from Mr. Felix Balocon. Ms. Cheryl, I think this question is for you. How can teachers and, what LMS is your school using, and why did your school opted to use such LMS? Can you give some inputs about Moodle as an LMS?
Okay, so the University of Santo Tomas has adopted Blackboard Learning Management System since 2002. Remember, at the time, there was no cloud-based technology. So our servers are located at the university. That is an on-premise setup. We used that because at the time, there was no LMS available that could, in fact, manage a massive size of 46,000 students and about 2,300 faculty members. And with that size, along the way, we need to make sure that we are able to scale and be able to maintain that quality of service. So that's why in around 2015 and 2016, we already moved into the cloud services at the time. And we did not stop at that. We did not stop during the time that, well, a lot of universities are still thinking of whether this is something that they will use or not. We did not wait for that pandemic, in other words, because we know already the direction where we are going. And then, of course, it's not a rosy path for all of us, but we are thankful that in pandemic, there were structure that were in place. In fact, the university right now, we have around 53 e-learning specialists that are working within different colleges, so that they are all supported both by students and for the faculty members. Did I miss another question, sir? So sorry, I forgot some of the questions.
The other question is, can you give some inputs about Moodle as an LMS?
Okay, so Moodle, in a sense, of course, it's free, it's on open source, it's something that can also be used. And then if you have a server, you can actually install it and you can actually have it run in your institution. There's nothing wrong with using the free open source. However, later on, if you would really focus on having more of the features, then there are also paid versions of Moodle that you can subscribe to. but you capitalize on something that is free as well, especially now that we are on pandemic. We want to make sure that the resources are there. And it's also a good thing that some of the top vendors are giving their services for free during this duration. So we need to maximize them. And I think a lot of SUCs are using Moodle, especially in conferences, conferences like Incodel. And I could actually see and meet a lot of administrators from the state universities using Moodle. And if you're able to do that, you're able to achieve your objectives, even if it's for free, even if it's enterprise, it actually doesn't matter in the end. All of this will be able to assist you in that journey.
Thank you, Ms. Cheryl. This next question I would like to contextualize to the BEU. Ayan, kaya, I think Dr. Henry may answer this. What is the ideal number of students in online class for efficient teaching and learning process?
Okay. Right now, ang ideal number that we are following is around 20 students per class. But I guess, depende rin sa context na meron kayo or depende sa program that you are following. For example, depende kasi yan sa decision ng institution ninyo on how many synchronous and asynchronous sessions yung gagamitin ninyo per week, for example. Pero kami sa De La Salle Zubel, mas nag-focus kami sa number of classes muna. Kasi we need to consider then yung expenses corresponding sa mga decisions na gagawin natin. Like for example, for small private institutions, napaka-challenging ng enrollees nila right now. So baka mas maging practical na yung number of sections na lang muna yung tutukan versus yung number of learners in a classroom. So depende sa context ninyo. Pero kami, finollow namin ngayon na per teacher, around 3 to 4 classes lang sila per term, okay, para masiguro yung effective feedback, and yung number of students namin in a class ay around 30 students pa rin kami.
Thank you, Dr. Henry. This next question is for Professor Ramos from Renz Pamela Ramirez. She's a librarian and they're using Canvas LMS. The library has a course in it. They posted modules that contain library online services, electronic resources, announcement, etc. Their problem is the statistics of usage is not quite good. What can you suggest to improve participation of students and teachers in their Canvas course?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's almost the same as what our USD librarians are doing. So you have now maybe a library orientation material that is now embedded in the learning management system, similar to what an online course is for their academic subjects. So what you want to do is increase usage so that students can actually go there and study whatever materials the librarians have shared. So I think for most, you also need to coordinate in different levels of the management. So for example, the library resources are under, let's say, should be in coordination with academic affairs. And so, for example, in our university, there is a schedule, library orientation. And so all students must be able to pass through that courses. And if there are quizzes that are in there, then that is a means for our students to be able to increase the engagement. If there is something that they need to answer in that particular lesson that you have uploaded in that library course. So there is that purposeful integration within the system, including the ability of the academic institutions or the colleges to be able to pull in students and mandate their attendance inside that course. So that's one. So another is that there should be an ongoing campaign from the librarian's perspective. For example, if you have library coordinators, they should be able to handhold students within the college to be able to access these resources inside these library materials. So I think you are already in the right track. You have maximized your Canvas elements and you have put your resources there to reach out as many students. I could imagine in pre-pandemic, you are actually probably doing this face-to-face. You're giving them some of the tour in the library that this happened, this and that here in this particular library section. And this now you're doing that virtually. What I think is just you need to involve the top management to be able to let the students in the colleges really subscribe to the resources of the library. And I think I've mentioned something about library resources being in isolation. There are a lot of digital resources, but they are in CDs in your library. And another is for this to be able to be brought into their LMS so that they could easily access them right now. That will make the library more relevant as of this point, that having the resources just reside in the cabinets. And just my thought on the library resources, the rich sources that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Sheriff. For this question, anybody in the panel may answer or give her or his opinion. What do you suggest as doable ways on how librarians and teachers could partner in addressing today's educational challenges? From Ruth Ducot.
Sige, ano naman ako naman ang susunod para
alternate.
Okay, in De La Salle Zubel, I should say, no, maganda yung partnership ng academics tsaka ng library group namin. May mga ini-execute sila ng mga activities like may tinatawag kaming human library wherein pag kailangan ng academics ng resource speakers, nagpa-partner kami with library in inviting human library, no, human resources that will share their expertise, kumbaga, that will help the learning process more effective or more efficient, if I may use the term. Number two, yung lalo na kasi for university, senior high school, or even siguro sa basic ed natin, super essential ng research, right? So, ang ginagawa namin, clear partnership. For example, during the first few weeks, nagko-collaborate yung academics saka yung library group in orienting the kids, informing them ano yung mga available resources. Kasi minsan hindi namin alam din sa academics or hindi alam ng kids. For example, nag-purchase pala yung school ng EBSCO, if familiar kayo sa platform na yun or sa resource na yun. So ginawa ng library namin, shinare nila sa mga students and sa teachers, then yun yung nag-address ng concern kasi alam ko may analytics na kailangang i-present ng library, yung number of usage kumbaga sa library, di ba? So dahil nag-transition tayo from F to digital, pwedeng yun yung magiging version ninyo. How many times sila nag-download doon, nag-view doon, etc. So mag-iisip kayo ng creative ways how to really kumbaga improve your partnership. Pero tingin ko hindi magiging mahirap kasi kayo talagang dalawa, no, yung ACADS at yung library group, yung super kailangan at pinaka-crucial yung kailangan maging integration. So again, context, resources, babalik tayo lagi doon sa mga key terms na pinag-usapan natin kanina.
All right, thank you, Dr. Henry. One last question from Sir Emmanuel Vinagrera. If current consensus is that there is no going back to the old normal of education, what do you think are the things that will be retained moving forward? For instance, do you think that on-site class sessions will become non-essential, considering this pandemic has shown that other modalities work? And anybody from the panel may want to answer that question.
I think I've mentioned a lot a while ago that the concern really is you still focus on effective teaching and learning, whatever the learning environment is. So if that is something that you have in mind, so if we go back to our previous way after the pandemic, I think we were able to experience the benefit of having it online and having it at a distance. So all of this could still become part of your repertoire as a teacher. In fact, it has been a catalyst, and our teachers are able to look into ways by which it has expanded and enriched his or her teaching practices. And so I think teachers may probably not go back to zero technology. But then when you go back to the context of what we have, at the end, you have to choose which one would really be the best solution. And if you think that your print could be your fail-safe proof solution, then so be it. But at the other end of the spectrum, if there is this opportunity for something that is online, then by all means, you maximize all of this at the same time. So in the end, with or without technology, you'll really be able to achieve your objective if you have your focus and your persistence to be a very good teacher and be able to be a better ward to your students in the end.
Thank you, Ma'am Cheryl. Again, I would like to express our gratitude to our guest speakers today, Mr. Raj, Ma'am Cheryl, and Dr. Henry, for all the sharing, the input you have given us today. It's so inspiring. Thank you for giving us or pointing us to the signposts that we must be on guard as we do our e-learning work as teachers and as librarians. We now proceed to the closing remarks. May I now call on the founding chair of the Network Learning PH Incorporated and the Dean of College of Liberal Arts in De La Salle University, Dr. Roderick V. Nuncio, for the closing remarks.
Hi, Dean. Can you turn on the camera and the audio?
Hello.
Yes. Yes, Dean. We can hear you.
Hello. Good
Yeah.
morning.
No,
Can you turn on?
Okay. Can you hear
yes,
me?
yes, Doc.
Okay. So I hope you are you can hear me. Okay, yung mga participants. So good morning. First of all, I would like to congratulate Wiley, okay, and NLPH, specifically to Mr. Rajinder Singh, Mr. Marlon Jude Gorospe, Dr. Henry Lynn Magahis, and Professor Ana Ramos. And at the same time, I will also send my heartfelt gratitude to the participants of this webinar. The future of teaching and learning relies on the integration of many things. So systems, processes, technologies, people, and vision. Because of the pandemic, whether we like it or not, we have accelerated embracing a new normal. And I don't like to describe what this new normal because right now we are into it. I know that there are some struggles and hurdles from the side of the teachers, also from the side of the students and administrators. But we are really adapting to a new environment, and we are all together learning from it. And also, we are also adjusting to the challenges that we are facing right now due to the pandemic, the typhoon, and other things. Webinar Jam is the present and future of teaching and learning. It is this integration provided for by Webinar Jam that can help us to teach effectively, to learn from one another, to systematize learning portfolio, to improve processes like video enhancement, research productivity, assessment integration, among others, to open ourselves to rapid changes in the technologies of learning and teaching, to value people and learners above all, and to envision learning as an end goal or outcome for human development and social progress in the years to come. May this webinar be the way for teachers and learners alike to reimagine how we can pursue and sustain meaningful collaborations to help each other and to benefit from one another. Again, my heartfelt gratitude to everyone, to our speakers, to our organizers and sponsors. Thank you and a pleasant day to all.
Thank you, Dr. Nuncio. We have now come to the end of the program. For your evaluation, please either scan the QR code on your screen or visit the shortened URL displayed also on your screen. Certificate of participation shall be emailed to you after you accomplish the evaluation form. All right. On behalf of the organizers, Wiley, Network Learning PH Incorporated, and Philippine Librarians Association Incorporated, I would like to express our sincerest gratitude to you all for attending this webinar. We hope that today's sessions were as fruitful to you as they have been to us. God bless.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Henry. Thank you, Dean Shaw. Thank you, Professor Ramos.
Thank you po. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.